Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Glasgow for the MSEM format. I'm Caillou. Today we're going to be watching the round 1 match between BluesEclipse, who's playing blue-white artifact aggro, and Cyber, who's playing Grixis Tempo, which is a deck that has traditionally been given the playful name of Loathing, Hate, and Malice. So far both these players kind of having a reasonable start. Blue's running out a Reflective Automaton on turn 2, which gives some decent card selection, especially given how many of Blue's cards, if I remember right, create artifact tokens. Meanwhile, Cyber is going to run out the Performer of Desire. This is one of the most powerful threats in the format, not because of its front side, but because if left unchecked, it turns into Pyrus the Undying Flame. Fortunately, Blues does have a way to check it. It's going to Sand Scatter the Pyrus. This can be considered kind of like a side grade, or not side grade, but adjacent to Path to Exile, except they don't get to fetch the land from their library, which makes it justifiable to move up to 2 mana, because colorless land is far worse than a land where you can choose the color at least. Because, for example, if that was Path to Exile, I'm pretty sure Cyber would have just gone and fetched up a basic island right there. Okay, Cyber's going to tap 3 for Intrepid. This is one of the powerful Wanderlust cards from one of the latest sets to enter MSEM, Worlds Away. Despite being a vehicle, don't be fooled. In reality, it's essentially a 4/4 flying vigilance as long as you control 4 or more differently named lands. By grabbing... And yet now the issue is because Blues gave Cyber this desert token with a Sand Scatter, Intrepid can become a creature. Wanderlust is a mechanic which you really have to build around in Limited, but in Constructed with the mana base of MSEM, it ends up being relatively free. So Intrepid ends up being a very powerful card. Okay, so Blues is going to tap 2 and float blue and white, then is going to play Northern Express Line. So this is essentially kind of a mana rock, but you can also cast it by returning a land to your hand, which makes its flexibility really good. It's also very good for decks which want to accelerate out multiple pieces really quickly. And then is going to pay 3 and play Vidalcan Machinist and grabbing a Topter token. And if you're wondering why Blues is doing all of these scries, it's because of Reflective Automaton, like I mentioned earlier. The fun part is Blues actually gets... it doesn't get 2 scries because Vidalcan Machinist isn't an artifact creature itself. Abort! Never mind. On Cyber's turn, Cyber's going to play a Possibility Engine, another powerful Wanderlust card. Essentially draws you a card and plays another Possibility Engine. But essentially draws you a card every time you play a spell, but you can only play one of the drawn cards per turn. So it's more like advanced card selection. And then Cyber is presumably going to swing in for 4 with the Intrepid, just to force Blues to waste this Topter token blocking it. Yep is going to animate Intrepid and swing in for 4. Blues actually just taking it, interestingly, not blocking with a Topter. And because Intrepid has Vigilance, Cyber can still block something next turn. And it's going to run out a Scorch, which is basically a sorcery speed lightning bolt, on the Vidalcan Machinist. Presumably to draw, quote-unquote, 2 more cards off of these Possibility Engines. Draws a Zetla, which isn't super great right now, and a Xenocratus fleet, which is pretty good, because it really forces Blues to have to not ever attack, even more than this Intrepid was already doing. Blues' deck definitely seems like, from what I've seen from the deck list, seems like the type of deck which, when it comes together, it really comes together in terms of the power of its synergies. If it doesn't, then you're playing a bunch of underpowered cards. Oh wow, and after a little bit of thinking, Blues is just going to scoop game 1, which, to be fair, makes a lot of sense. Intrepid was stymieing anything that Blues could have done, and the double Possibility Engines meant that Cyber was going to easily and quickly run Blues out of card advantage. Anyways, in the meantime, let's look at the sideboards to see what these guys might be bringing in. So 4 Blues has a Cold Grave, which, if I remember right, I don't think Cyber has that much in the graveyard, so probably not going to bring it. Unbreachable Walls might be okay, but in general, these types of cards feel kind of bad. I'm wondering if there is some sort of like infinite combo in Blues' deck that that I'm not seeing / don't know about. I wouldn't be surprised, and it would explain some of the wonkier cards that seem to be in the deck. Or it just could be a very synergy heavy deck. But the Unbreachable Walls definitely gives me the feeling that there's some sort of combo afoot. Dispel, I don't know that Cyber's running enough instants as opposed to sorceries to warrant the Dispel. Fade into Mists, this is another card which gives me the impression that there is some combo in Blues' deck, because similar to Lost in Smoke, this is usually used to remove problem permanents for one turn, such as Mercantile Accords. Then Potion of Inhibition, I don't think, this is not a matchup where this comes in. Negate, I could definitely easily see the Negate coming in, and the Once Shunned for sure. So I think Negate and Once Shunned are coming in. Not sure what would be coming out. Maybe some of the weaker creatures, like, it's hard for me to evaluate, but I could see Lightsteel Enforcers and maybe one Vidalcan Machinist and one Reflective Automaton coming out for a Negate and Once Shunned. Meanwhile, on Cyber's end, 4 of Thought Blossom, I don't think Blues is running it enough to justify that. The Negates, similarly, maybe could come in, but I don't think all 4, maybe 2 of. Careless Violence, I think all 4 could easily come in. And then Reign of Madness, maybe instead the Reign of Madness because of how much the artifact creatures can grow. Yeah, Cyber Sideboard is really teched for this, for an aggressive matchup. I could see like 3 Reign of Madness, and then you just side out like what? A Strikebreaker or 2? I don't know. Maybe the Portal Fractures. And actually, the real answer is probably Zetla. You probably side out 2 Zetlas for 2 Reign of Madness and then just go to town that way. Also, these turn to golds, because of the artifact synergy, plus Reign of Madness is likely to be just better turn to gold, because I don't believe Blues has that many big creatures, so that might also come out as well. So let's say some number of Scorch, turn to gold, and Zetla out for some number of these wipes. Anyways, getting into game 2, Blues on the play again. Is going to start with one of the format's shock fetches. Just going to grab a basic plains with it, though. Interesting. I was going to float W. That means we're going to see a rail line. So it's going to play the Northern Express line and use the floating W to cast Self-Replication. Gets 2 1/1 construct tokens because he controls a Northern Express line. Cyber, meanwhile, is just going to play a Magmatic Torrent and pass, not choosing to pay the life, so it enters tapped. Okay, and it's going to play Nightwatch Rallier X equals 1. So these constructs quickly become 2/2s right here. Cyber, meanwhile, is just going to run out a Possibility Engine, but yeah, it really needs to find an answer to Blues' board, because Blues is going to be swinging for 5 here, and then could potentially just kill Cyber next turn. Okay, you got to play Sparking Automaton, and then swing for 5. And then next turn, Blues attacks for a minimum of 8. But if Blues has anything that creates artifacts, this Sparking Automaton could grow to lethal. So this is the moment of truth. Does Cyber have one of the 8 wipes they might have sided in? No, does have an Intrepid though. Cannot animate it yet. So you're going to grab an island with Intrepid. Oh, it seems like Blues doesn't have anything else, so it's just going to be swinging in for 8. Cyber is extremely close to death. Blues doesn't have any reach, but I guess Blues' thought is if Blues has the counter magic, there's a 2-mana spell which which taxes a spell for 4 if you control, I believe it's like if you control an artifact. So I think Blues might just be holding that up, and then just guarantees lethal next turn if Cyber doesn't have a wipe. And I guess Cyber doesn't have an answer, so we're going to game 3. These have been some explosively quick games. Cyber's going to play a Murmuring Falls, and then tap it for Seek Prophecy turn 1. Grabs a Swamp, and then mills a Performer of Desire and Jara champion? So Cyber either must not have red mana, or is getting the land because Cyber has an Intrepid or forgetting the name of the other one, but the other 3-mana vehicle, and Cyber's trying to enable it. Cyber gonna pay 2, Possibility Engine. Yup, so I guess this is another Wanderlust card that Cyber might have been trying to enable by grabbing that swamp. He's gonna pay 2 and play Artificer's Prowess. Unfortunately, all it does is create a single construct token and draw a card. It doesn't have its souped up mode of creating a 6/6. And then gonna bounce the plains to play yet another rail line. And there's a swamp that Cyber grabbed with the Seek Prophecy. Well, that's another reason not to grab a Performer of Desire. Just having one is just a good reason, And hits a Crumbling Precipice off of the Possibility Engine. At least got a land off the top of his library. Blue is gonna tap 3 for a Lightsteel Enforcer. Just a 2/1 for now. Going to bounce a land for a third rail line, pumping this up to a 3/2. Unfortunately, though, if Cyber has a red land here, Cyber can immediately flip Performer of Desire. That's where things get hairy for Blues. Okay, instead he's going to play a Jara Champion, getting a Portal Fracture off of the Possibility Engine. Does Cyber not have a third land? Okay, he's going to Scorch and kill the Lightsteel Enforcer. It's a Zetla. Neither Portal Fracture nor Zetla are particularly useful. And Cyber swung in for 2 right there with the Performer of Desire. Meanwhile, Blues is going to tap out for Wonderkind Devising. So this is a crazy powerful card advantage engine. And wow, the 4th rail line. That means Wonderkind Devising immediately goes up to a single progress counter. So in a deck with lots of artifacts, this card is amazing because it can be anywhere from a draw 1 to an extra draw 3 on each of your upkeeps. Now the question is, will Cyber be able to draw the red land that they need to be able to play this, transform this Performer of Desire? So Cyber's just going to swing with the Jara Champion and then pass. I think Cyber is definitely being mana screwed right here. Meanwhile, off of the Wonderkind Devising hits Sparking Automaton and Nightwatch Rallier, both of which are really good. Okay, and Blues has the Sandscatter for the Performer of Desire. Does give Cyber a 4th land, so Possibility Engine is online, but Performer of Desire was Cyber's best win con here. Oh, and Blues has a second Sandscatter to kill this Jara Champion. I was really thinking that Blues is going to build up his board with the artifacts he just drew, but I guess he figures he can win in his own sweet time, and pumping up the Wonderkind Devising is more important. Cyber, though, snapping right back, gonna Rogar's Frenzy the Construct. Not really what you want to be doing, but if it prevents Wonderkind Devising from making it a 5/5, it's fine. Also is something that Cyber can use their mana on Blues' end step. So now with Wanderlust active, this Portal Fracture is essentially dead because you can't cast on an opponent's turn. I don't think you really want to play out the Crumbling Precipice, so Zetla is really the only live card on the Possibility Engine. It's probable that Cyber's going to play something else and then see what Zetla happens. See what card gets... I don't know why I said see what Zetla happens, oh my god. What I meant to say is play a spell and then see what gets exiled with Possibility Engine. So Cyber's actually going to play the Zetla off of the Possibility Engine. This does mean that Cyber can't play whatever Possibility Engine hits off of this. He's going to -2, make Blues discard a card at random, trying to hit the Nightwatch Rallier probably. Instead hits the Sparking Automaton. That is like a creature, so. Meanwhile, Blues reveals Brinefleet Bay, Sedate Tundra, and another Wonderkind Devising. So that time only draws a Brinefleet Bay, but it is pretty powerful, given that it is both a land and a crazy powerful 5/5 haster. He's going to play the Brinefleet Bay. Okay, then he's going to play Nightwatch Rallier, X = 2, and go to end. So I'm suspecting that Blues doesn't have anything else, otherwise definitely would have played a 2-power creature with Nightwatch Rallier and then crewed the Brinefleet Bay. Cyber is just going to respond to the Nightwatch Rallier by scorching it, but Blues has a negate, and that puts Wonderkind devising up to its last mode, so now all artifacts that Cyber controls are 5/5s, which means that even though Cyber did hit a Rogar's Frenzy off of the Possibility Engine, cannot kill the Nightwatch Rallier. Also, I just realized all of these rail lines are now 5/5s. Cyber is very much dead next turn, unless Cyber has removal for this Wonderkind devising, which in red-black is gonna be an issue. Cyber does have the turn to gold for the Nightwatch Rallier. Unfortunately, or ironically, the gold token this creates will also be a 5/5. So Blues has a grand total of 25, 30 power on board right now. And Cyber's tapped out. I don't know what Cyber's plan is here. So Blues is just going to swing in with everything for a whopping 30 damage. And that's it. Yeah, there's nothing that Cyber could have there. So after that quick concession in game 1 from Blues, just immediately turned it around games 2 and 3 with those explosive, aggressive starts. Good games to both players. I'm excited to see, because both these players are still in the running for the top so far. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how both of these decks fare against the rest of the field, because I think Cyber's deck is more measured, and due to its answers plus its potentially fast clock, can deal with some of the greedier decks. Blues punishes the greedy decks in a different way by having 1 or 2 tempo answers and then just overrunning them eventually with artifacts. Yeah, until next time, this is Caillou.